What's going on? I'm Ty, wishing you a happy May the 4th. And because of the occasion, I decided that I'd finally check out Star Wars Squadrons. I know it's been out for a while, but I just really didn't have a chance to fit it into my gaming backlog and schedule. A, I love Star Wars, and B, I also love the MechWarrior games from back in the day. Both MechAssult and MechWarrior. Specifically, MechWarrior 2 was actually my first PC game that I bought. I remember vividly jumping at the chance to play it when I got my first PC. So I figured, why not break it down for you and explain why Star Wars Squadrons actually gives a fantastic blueprint for what a new MechWarrior or MechAssult game, even if it's just a spiritual successor, could be. So, Star Wars Squadrons does actually a really good job of giving you a first-person in-the-cockpit view and all of the instruments that you would need in order to navigate and sort of pilot your ship, or in the case of a MechWarrior game, your mech. I'd actually say just forget the complete HUD and just go straight old-school, hard built into each mech, so that you have a different experience depending on what mech you're piloting. So one thing that would work really good here is actually how Star Wars Squadrons breaks apart the controls. So just as an example, I got the Xbox Series X controller here with me, and in Star Wars Squadrons and in the new mech game, you would actually want to really separate what each control stick does. You would want the left control stick here to actually be the legs or bottom part of the mech. In this case, it would mean that, like Star Wars Squadrons, when you push the controller forward or back, you would actually get your throttle increased forward or in reverse. And this would also allow you to navigate using the left and right to adjust and pivot how your legs would rotate. This would allow you to kind of separate your brain into a left thumbstick, left hand scenario, and a right thumbstick for the torso and the rest of the aiming components. The other big thing that I'd really advocate for here is to force the first person perspective, kind of like how Squadrons does in the mech. However, I would actually recommend having a third person view when you're outside of the mech, allowing you to run around and actually get a scope, because when you're down that small, you would actually want to be able to get a better feel for the battlefield as if you were still in the mech. So getting into the second main point is actually going to be related to the combat, which Star Wars Squadrons actually has this nice kind of slow-paced combat feel to it, while still giving you enough time to manage your gauges with little things like adjusting how much power is sent to lasers, your thrusters, or your shield. This is a fairly similar system that, while I wouldn't want to completely copy it for a new MechWarrior or MechAssult game, at least see things like heat cooldown or different shields that you can maybe bring up temporarily, jump jets, all that sort of stuff as little meters and indicators on the actual interface built into the mech, I think would be a phenomenal addition. And similar to Star Wars Squadrons, you could use some basic color coding and shapes to really emphasize and change direction and the player's focus to be able to see those while concentrating on the combat at hand. The other thing that would work really well with this is the fact that while you have slower paced combat, it's not that nothing's going on, it's that it's more strategic. A lot of Star Wars Squadrons is kind of getting from point A to point B, making sure that my shots are going to be lined up, trying to position myself, which translates really well to the MechWarrior and MechAssult series. Giving the player more time to kind of think about where they want to position themselves, get into those positions, but also making it so that, just like the old games, if you happen to get yourself kind of stuck walking in a straight direction, you actually can kind of screw yourself over because you're a sitting duck, especially if someone takes out your leg, like we used to use as a strategy back in MechWarrior 3. That was an amazing strategy and managed to allow me to get my clan to second best on Microsoft Gaming Zone way back in the day before Xbox Live was even around. Oh, the only #1 clan there actually did the same strategy, just blow out the leg, make sure you have jump jets on so if you happen to get your leg blown out, you're okay, but that's getting completely derailed here and off topic. I think it would just be an awesome strategy that could still work, but you might want to have some more ways of mitigating that. Which actually brings me to the things that would be kind of cool. Having little differences like being able to completely power off your mech in order to avoid missiles that are homing, having other features like maybe flares that can shoot off, or even counter missiles as an ability. If someone's shooting one directly at you, you could actually fire it at a specific angle and allow it to kind of carry the missile on and kind of lead it off. Even potentially rerouting the missile and having it attack someone else. Ultimately though, this would be built around having the ability to maybe not level up per se in terms of a pilot or mech, but fully customize, invest money and resources into getting new equipment, upgraded versions of weapons and armor onto the mech, needing to do repairs in between battles as well would be a great way of having an economy built into the game, as well as something that the player can grind or work towards and always have an achievable goal in sight. Which leads me to the third point here, which is more of the systems and features. As much as I would love to have this be a co-op experience, I think ultimately having it as a online multiplayer battle game would actually be really beneficial, something catapulting the series into the modern age while sort of dragging old fans like myself along. Like Fortnite or Warzone, as much as I'm not a big fan of those games, something like a MechWarrior game where, say, once a season you can pick a clan, you and your friends can join, but this would allow friends to pick either separate or the same clan and work towards individual progressions within that clan. That's the other thing. I'd focus on the outer rim clans in this rather than the inner sphere. If you're anywhere familiar with the MechWarrior / Battletech series like I am. The cool thing here is that I'd recommend each season be 3 months long, and after the season's done, you can actually switch out to a completely different clan, which gives you options for different unlockables. This would also allow you to, as a developer, not have to keep adding quite as much content, because people would only be able to unlock things from each clan every 3 months. So maybe you play as the Frost clan right now, and eventually you switch over to another one, and after, say, a year, you switch back to the Frost clan again, and you'll have a bunch of additional unlocks that are carried over between seasons rather than completely replaced each season. So what I'd recommend here is actually, rather than having battles take place on specific, say, levels or battle arenas, I think the best option here would actually be to make an entire universe with multiple planets on it where each clan is actually progressing to take over more and more land. This would contribute to resources that you earn and allow the full player base to kind of battle with each other back and forth. While an entire planet or entire area wouldn't be one based on a single victory from one group, it would be really cool if it counted towards victories, and maybe on a weekly basis, different territory was claimed based on how many victories have been won by a specific team in that area. The other thing is, this would also mean that based on where you are on the map, different clans would actually only be fighting other clans if their territories were adjacent. Rather than having it be kind of free-for-all for everyone, you might have different fronts for the war, adding almost like a turn-based strategy element into the real-time combat of the MechWarrior game. There's actually a blueprint for this that would work really well, and it's back from when I was in high school. Me and a bunch of buddies used to play Planetarion. It's one of those web-based MMO sort of games, and every season it resets, but you create a planet and you can get resources, take over other people's planets, and you can actually get completely wiped out. While I wouldn't recommend going quite that far with something like this, I still think it's a really cool foundation that at the beginning of each season, the clans would all just reset, there'd be a bunch of empty territory, and people can kind of go over and take it over from NPCs. But eventually you run up to borders and you have to actually battle other players. Gives a little bit of give and take and a little bit of introduction for each season so that new players aren't caught off guard by old veterans. So I haven't talked too much about how Star Wars Squadrons gives the blueprint other than the controls, and also obviously the presentation here. But I urge you, if you haven't checked it out yet and you do have Game Pass, it's on there. So just go and check it out and do yourself a favor. If you don't have Game Pass and you happen to have it on PC or you have it on PlayStation, check it out with the VR. I haven't personally checked it out in VR, but I've actually played enough VR that I can kind of piece together the different feeling that it would have. And that would work really, really good for a MechWarrior game, having VR support, and could possibly elevate the game from something that is maybe just good or okay in some people's eyes to something that would be truly a great VR experience. Ultimately, I know that MechWarrior 5 did come out, and it came out on PC in 2019, had a really interesting idea and almost sucked me back in. But ultimately, the shortcomings of it and the fact that it wasn't really quite updated in the way that I would want to see it really made me kind of put it to the side. And while I do want to eventually get to it, it didn't make it a must-play right away. I think that Star Wars Squadrons, while it's still a good game, it came out A, at the completely right price, and B, especially now that you can get it on sale or play it on Xbox Game Pass, it is totally worth picking up and playing. But really, the big thing here is that it gives a fantastic blueprint with the fact that all of the sort of on-screen HUD that you have that's tangibly built into the different X-Wings, TIE fighters, and everything like that really gives a great foundation for what a fantastic MechWarrior game could be. So that's what I would love to see. So what would you like to see in the next MechWarrior game? Or have you checked out Star Wars Squadrons? Let me know down below if you've checked it out or even have a passing interest in it. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of dogfighting space games, but it really was a lot of fun. Make sure to subscribe if you like what you've heard, and definitely check out some of the older videos. They'll be linked on the video section, obviously. But until then, I'll see you next Games Tuesday.